I want to teach you how to imagine numbers that can't be counted in a normal way. So if we have a number like a billion, how do we hold that number in our mind? Now there are three ways of counting numbers. The first way is to put them in a line. The second way is to put it in an area. The third way is to put it in a cube. So if we had 64 little cubes, we could put them into a line, we can make a square of 8 by 8, or we could make a cube 4 by 4 by 4. So when we come to a number like a billion, and our millimeter cubes are put in a line, a billion in a line means it's 1,000 kilometers long. But if you put it in an area, it's 1,000 square meters. Now, if we put it in a cube, it's 1 cubic meter. So if we now have a number that is a billion billion millimeter cubes put into a line is 36 light days long. If we put those into a cube, it is a cubic kilometer. Now, if we have a billion millimeter cubes, we put them into a line, it's 100 million light years long. But in our imagination, to hold that number, to conceptualize it, we merely have to imagine a cube with each of these sides 1,000 kilometers long. Now we can apply this kind of logic and reach down from, say, a cubic meter all the way down to a cubic nanometer. So we can deal with these kind of numbers, and it's very important we deal with these kinds of numbers that can't be dealt with in normal ways, because our brains fire off 1,000,000 billion synapses per second. Each of those neurons firing involves 1 billion different molecules exchanging in that event. If we think back 750 years, which is 30 generations, we have 1 billion ways we are related to those people who lived in that time. If we go back 1,500 years, we have 1 billion different ways we're related to those people. If we go back 2,225 years or thereabouts, 1 billion different ways we're related to those people back then. Which means that people who live in 2,200 years' time will be related to us in 1 billion different ways. That means we're very, very important for those future people. Any slight variation in what we do will change the way the future world ends up. We know that because we are the result of this process that began long ago. So, be sure you understand the nature of what knowledge is. I have given you some information. I've given you the answer in a certain kind of way. And I use this analogy, or this hierarchy. There's a hierarchy of what knowledge is. The first is, I've been told the answer, therefore it is true. The second is, I have seen the answer, therefore it is true. The third is, I have tried the answer, therefore it is true. The fourth is, I have become familiar with the answer, therefore it is true. And then there's the last, which is the most enlightened one, where you've become an expert in that particular field because you've spent 1,000 hours over several years pondering this particular answer. And that means that your brain has altered its hierarchy, altered its architecture in order to produce a familiarity with something that is incredibly complex. So you are one thing, you are one human, but you also comprise of ones in the form of cells, you're comprised of ones in the forms of genetics, you are one within the billions, you are one within the billions of things that have always lived. We're somehow contained within these hierarchies of numbers. So be sure you practice. This form of understanding numbers requires practice, requires years of practice in order to become familiar with it. It's one of the reasons why anyone becomes an expert in any field of science. They have practiced and practiced until what was once difficult becomes incredibly easy. Now we do this with learning a musical instrument, we do it with gaining some sporting skill, we do it with all different kinds of things. Anyone who comes out of university has done this. Anyone who has a PhD thesis has done this. All we need to do now is put enough effort into understanding what it is we are as humans so that we can solve our own personal human issues and our contribution to our society can become beneficial. So this is what I call three-dimensional counting. There are three other systems that you will need to prepare yourself for in order to become enlightened. One is to become a master of human sound, which is overtone singing. Search overtone singing and find the best overtone singers on the YouTube. The second is becoming familiar with all possible movement. So make sure there's no movement that is unfamiliar to you. So that will protect you from any fall. It's reflexes, it's coordination, it's the ability to defend yourself against attackers. It's the ability to be confident that you are prepared for any circumstance. It overcomes all fear, and you walk and you behave, you act in a different way because you are in control of your destiny in some way. The third one I call is the three-dimensional counting systems. And the fourth is become a polymath. Make sure you understand enough about every essential field of knowledge so that when an expert explains stuff to you, you understand what that is. You understand what it means. You are familiar with the foundations of everything that's required in order to understand what you are as a living entity. So it's enlightenment. It'll take 3 years of practice and you become some amazing person in 3 years' time if you put the effort in. If you do nothing, then you will gain nothing. If you do almost nothing, you will gain almost nothing. So treat it like a university course. Treat it like you may as well master what it is to be alive. You may as well do that. There's nothing to lose. There's only things to gain. You become an amazing singer. You become amazingly versatile and protect yourself from injury. You become an amazing thinker. You become enormously informed about every possible subject. What could possibly go wrong with that? Particularly if everyone does it rather than just single isolated individuals. So become someone who makes a difference, someone who counts, someone who is part of the ancestry that the future has. They look back and they say, well, thanks for that contribution, because without that we would be living in poverty or in danger. Thank you very much. I'm Pete the Polymath.